Okay, and we are live. Where's that stream link? Hello, hello. Anyone in the chat? Comment down below. See if we can get some people in here. Hey Sheldon, what up? Why is this saying 0 watching? Okay. Oh, yep. Hey, Cubalt. See you there. Well, for some reason, dashboard is not being particularly cooperative. Stream is up, but it will not tell me how many are watching. I'll just open it another window, I guess. It's probably easier. Watching. Now we can see. Oh yeah, 4 people watching. Hey, what up, Nevs? All right, so I guess we might as well get this underway. How did this track come about? What were the ideas? How did I make it? So yeah, I guess the first thing I will do is reveal the track. So there you go. There's a lot of blue, red, and green layers. How this works is, what I essentially did is using the tutorial that Arglen made and I hosted on my channel, which you can actually see in the description if you scroll down in the tutorial playlist. There's a tutorial on how to generate circles in linewriter.com. So what I did was basically generated a lot of circles, and then I went back and regenerated the same circles in each line color, which is why all of these are just, even though this isn't hit tested, it's all like that. So yeah, they're all generated in increments of 30, and the smaller ones probably have a lot more line density than the larger ones, which is probably a good thing in hindsight, because there's like less hit testing. But yeah, like so the song is called Hall, and it's by Christian Loeffler. I heard this song, I think I just came across it on like a YouTube playlist or something, and upon listening to it, I just really wanted to make a track to the music, and I spent a day, or probably almost a day, just trying to figure out what I should actually do. And yeah, eventually this concept came about. I was actually initially seeing if it was possible to generate a spiral, but this concept seemed more viable and turned out a lot better, I think. A lot of this track actually just almost makes itself. Like sometimes something to do with the evenness of the speed and the constantness of everything means that a lot of like these sections, these outer sections, will just almost recycle themselves without me having to do that much. But yeah, this is the first track talk I've ever done on myself, so I guess I'll have to try and remember the questions I normally ask people. History, what are the themes? Yeah, I wanted something that would be like the song, really. So not necessarily like mechanically synced up to it, although it is like that in places. Oh, that's probably one of my favorite parts of the track, by the way, that manual transition. So yeah, I wanted something that was kind of like atmospherically dreamlike and similar. And when I showed Anton and Sheldon the concept, like Anton was pretty struck by how these lines actually looked, especially when we had soft camera enabled. So I just thought I'd continue with it, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, I think it's just turned out really pretty epic. One of the things also of making this track was one of the reasons I don't really make that many tracks at the moment is just because, like, for me, I have to have like a really interesting idea to actually want to do something. Like, I can't just make the same thing again and again and again. Oh, that was a particularly time-consuming part. Look at that. That is iterationally based or frame-by-frame flat sled. The most, and it's like hidden as well, so it's like even more pointless. Well, because this in one of the previous recycles is a fling, so I just basically wrote on top of it and added some more lines. So yeah, comment down some questions below. I mean, I did do this live so that people could ask me shit. If you have a question, please type below. One other factor about this track is there isn't very much multi-lining involved. Like a lot of the, actually even this part here, there's not really multi-lining involved. Most of this is me having to do a bit of wizardry to try and pop this Bosch basically back down further and further in, because it's not very hard to get to the outer circles of this, but it is quite hard to get to the inner ones. So yeah, for example, here I was doing some iterational pulls, which I can probably make a bit clearer with preview mode and hit test on. Yeah. So if I go, yeah, so we had a, let me get some more of these on. Oh yeah, I can see a bit better now. So yeah, the first one is just a kind of general pull. It just grabs several of the contact points. And then from there, I started making these ones like this, right? Iterationally pull on every single time the point jumped out. I did the same kind of thing in the next one as well. So yeah, stuff like that can be quite time consuming, but I had to do it because if I just drew a line like this, you can't hide that. I mean, it might hide, but I don't know. My OCD would not allow me to. What version of LRA am I using? This is just the standard LRA 1.04. I didn't actually need to use any modded versions, although the circles, as I said in the beginning, are generated in .com, and more information for that is in the tutorials in the description. You stole Conan's trademark avatar. Yeah, initially I didn't actually fill in this section with the green, and if I just let me put color playback back on. Yeah, like if there was like no green here, it essentially like looks a little bit like Conan's avatar, which is funny. But yeah, so I think what point I just shown? Yeah, there's something like that, and then there's like another one of these somewhere. It might be in. Let's get the hitboxes back on so I can actually see. These things are tiny. Oh yeah, there you go. There's a bunch of them on this point here. They basically just take a heck of a lot of fiddling and you kind of get there. Yeah. So that one was pretty time consuming as well. I think as far as like technique wise in this track, like I kind of went with first, like, it had to be fun, so I'd actually like want to continue it, but I wanted to make things look natural. So because the whole like concept of this kind of song is just a kind of dreamlike grace. So like when I do stuff like manuals, they had to be like kind of like, you know, like kind of match it. Like they'd roll out, like this one rolls out, and then it transitions into a chain, and then I'm using more of these kind of iterational pulls. Managed to jam them down into here, which was a bit of a pain. The stall on this track took quite a while, as Arglin can attest. He was helping me out with that. But eventually we settled on just using this smaller circle, which I think works really well. Initially I was going to try and stall them on there, but it was a pain in the ass. And I think this works better with the track overall. Oh, that's kind of trippy with onion skinning. So, yeah, one of the things I'll also show, and I'm talking about like kind of more natural transitions, is the manual that happens right about here. I think, is it here? Oh no, it's somewhere back here though. Was that it? Oh no, okay, yeah, it's the one before. Yeah, it's this one. So there's this point where like it rolls very naturally into this position, and because of the way I constructed this track, like we've generated circles and already having blue and red lines, it meant all I really needed to do was just like remove a blue line every now and then. I didn't really have to multi-line anything, which kind of simplified the process, and it looks very, very smooth, I think, as a result. Yeah, it's probably my favorite manual. So, make the middle circle lines red. Have that boy go on a spin cycle. Is there any inspirations? So, I've wanted to do something for a while akin to, you know, like Seeley or some of Andrew Hess's work. And obviously I don't have access to those tools. So I was like, well, when I saw these circles, I was like, huh, this kind of like gives that that kind of dreamlike, illusory feel, which is something I've been wanting to make for a while. So it kind of just fell together. And also, just to be honest, I've wanted to make a track like this just out of circles for ages, but I was just wondering how to do it. So I wouldn't say there's like, I guess in terms of tracks, like the closest track that would inspire me for this is probably, you know, like Gypsy, mixture of Gypsy, Seeley, some of Toivo's works, and some of Andrew Hess's works. But I had to kind of like, it had to be like my own work, you know, because that's really making something kind of newish or different in some way is more like the path that I'm kind of going down with Line Rider at the moment. Because like otherwise it just like doesn't interest me. If I don't feel like I'm adding anything compared to what people are already doing, then like I just don't have as much interest. Or like I might make stuff similar to theirs maybe, but I just wouldn't really feel like publishing it. So I didn't really feel like it was that interesting. But yeah. So do we have any other questions for this? One of the things I'm tempted to do is to generate a bunch more circles on the edge just to see how it looks, but then it'll probably drive me nuts afterwards, so have that boy. Don't put your Bosch in a washing machine. Yeah, Bosch gets enough abuse, people. Don't abuse your Bosch. One of the other things that I really like about this concept is even with you know, the stuff I've done, there's still a lot of track that's unused. Even in like the very early segments, if I get the playback onto preview mode, you can see. Let's go to the end of the track. Oh wow, that's some trippiness. There's still like sections here that could still be used. There's elements of this that could probably be reused. A lot of the middle segments didn't even get used once because there's actually just so much track here. And to be honest, like these outer segments, because it recycles itself, like there's actually very little track here at all. But it gives the impression that there is. Can't come up with original ideas. Just like make stuff you want to make and let it flow, I guess. But yeah, I mean there isn't really that much more I could say about this track. It was just something I made in about a little under a week, I guess. Some parts of this, as I said, kind of made themselves. Others required a lot more time to just make sure like they recycle properly. Stuff like the way this would come to the edge and drop in is kind of important to me because I wanted to have this feel like he's always returning to the same point. That's why I named it Centrism, because it's not going particularly far in either direction. It's just kind of sticking in the middle. And that's one of the reasons I had this contained bit. Like I didn't really necessarily really fancy the idea of having more lines out here, because I wanted it to look like he was in his own kind of world, I guess. Although he always came back to the same kind of region. So there's definitely, thematically, that's definitely a thing in this track. So any more questions? Because if not, I should probably wrap this up pretty soon, because I can't really think of anything else to include for this. I mean, one thing I would say, if Conan's watching this, buddy, we want these tools so we can make some more cool shit. There's a lot of other stuff I would have liked to have been able to do that I couldn't. So I don't know what your plans are, but please speed them up, because we all want to have a crack with all these tools and make more cool shit, and your software definitely helps to further line ride it in that direction. Will I be doing any more track talks with your tracks? I guess. I mean, which tracks would you want to see track talks on? I mean, I've seen comments for doing one on Bacon, which I guess I could do, but like I've already kind of explained it at the end of the video. It's mostly just expanding on some of the ridiculousness in Ham, except making it even more pointless because it's like refined. But why does Bosch not ride the outer ring? I don't know. There isn't that much of a reason, to be honest. It's mostly just that was where his momentum ran out. And maybe I just didn't want him to get on the very outer ring because it seemed like it was too close to being far away. What other project of yours does this resemble the most? Probably Endless, I guess. And yeah, probably a bit like Endless and a bit like Flower Duet. Like if both of those became more refined, they'd probably become something like this. Why didn't you add more rings to the outside? I talked about that a little bit earlier, but the main reason was because I wanted this to feel like its own kind of sphere, its own world. And also there's one other effect that I like in this track. Let me get to one of the points where it's going around the outside. Okay, so let's turn this off, put it in recording. If you look when it starts to get close to the edge, it almost looks like the lines themselves are spinning, like on a merry-go-round or something. And I kind of like that effect, where it looked like the actual entire track was rotating, rather than just Bosch moving around it. And I thought that was pretty cool. Track talk on Endless? Yeah, we can do that. I mean, heck, I could just go into more of them after this stream if you guys are game. I mean, it might be a somewhat of an abundance of content. But yeah, we could do that. Or maybe I'll make them unlisted so I can republish them or whatever. So yeah, I guess that'll probably conclude this. This has been a unique track talk for me. I'm not really used to talking about my own works, but I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, maybe I'll do another one on Endless or another track after this. Alright, sweet. See you, boys.